You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. Many of you know him well. He is one of the foremost intellectuals in the country. I did not say black intellectuals, foremost intellectuals. He's an author, a scholar, lecturer. He is a professor. And he simply goes by. The only time you might ever hear him not got something to say is if he's listening to, of course, John Coltrane.
It's true.
And Dr. Cornel West. And Curtis Mayfield. Oh, yeah. Dr. Cornel West, how you doing?
How you doing, my brother? Man,
I'm great, sir.
You, brother. You got longevity, though, brother. You rolling. You are in Curtis's language, brother. You've been keep on pushing. And I respect you, though, brother. Love and respect you. Love that A5A, too, though, brother, in the name of Donny Hathaway and Duke Ellington and Martin Luther King Jr. and John Hope Franklin and a whole host of others, including Roland Sebastian Martin himself. And Cornel.
And earlier we had Reverend Dr. William Barber. So,
Lord. And we want to salute Brother BB, too, man.
Yes, sir. That's an amazing song.
He represents a grand exemplar of our great tradition, man, the black musical tradition, the greatest modern tradition in the modern world, dealing with catastrophe and responding with creativity and compassion. So we salute BB and CC. Their whole family is part of the nobility of the artists that keep us real and keep us accountable, my brother.
Speaking of that, I asked this to Erica Alexander, and I said this, and I've been saying it. In my 51 and a half years, I have never seen the kind of movement that we have seen in this country, actually around the world, since George Floyd was murdered 6 weeks ago. When you see King Leopold statues coming down in Belgium, when you see them targeting roads in England, when you see in New Zealand taking down colonizer statues as well, when you see corporations having to respond to rebellions on the inside from black employees and young white allies as well, when you see police departments, I mean, George Floyd's murder literally has unleashed something that we have not seen in more than 50 years.
You are absolutely right, though, brother. And Brother Floyd Jr., though, man, his impact on the world, we were comparing him with Emmett Till in 1955, but now it is so global and international. It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when the manifestation of a spirit, of a hatred, of an injustice, in this case of white supremacy, and the fact that it's a combination. You got a neo-fascist gangster in the White House, lying, tied to crimes. You got pandemic in place, so people do have extra time to think about some things rather than just get caught in their routine. And then you got public lynching, and then the hunger and the thirst for something real. All that coming together, and my brother, this marvelous manifestation of militancy on the streets in the name of a bearing witness in the face of white supremacy is a beautiful thing, though, man. It was unprecedented. Nobody could have predicted this. Nobody.
Right. Well, and I think I was having a conversation last night, and someone said that this thing just happened. I said, no, this did not just happen. I said this was a buildup. This was
That's right.
a
That's right.
constant buildup. I said you can go back to Eric Garner. You can go back to those deaths, John Crawford III, Rekia Border, Yonda Jones. You can go back. You can Breonna Taylor, Mark Arbery. You can go back to Trayvon Martin. You can go back to Jenna Six. I said you can just keep going back. I said, and then what you had was I said, for the 12-year-old kid, white kid, when Obama announced in February 2007, that white kid is now 25. And so you have
Ooh,
all of those things.
that's
And I
true.
said, we can't overlook that for them, their first president was a black guy. And then the second time, 8 years, then a woman is a leading candidate. So the world that they have seen is totally different from previous generations, and it has unleashed these forces that, frankly, America and the world was not prepared for.
That's exactly right. The one thing I would add, though, brother, and you tell me what you think about this, is the intense Afro Americanizing of young people of whatever color in hip hop
Yes,
culture.
yes,
So they're
yes.
from Tupac and Biggie all the way through Missy, all the way up to Jay-Z and Kanye. We know how confused our brother Kanye is, but I still love the brother, appreciate his genius. But the impact of the hip hop artists in shaping the sensibilities of a lot of those young activists who are out there, you see, because they've heard from NWA, they've heard from the various artists about police brutality. Now they get a chance to see the public lynching before their very eyes. And so, in that regard, the role of the arts becomes very important in terms of shaping the sensibilities of these hundreds of thousands of folk, but disproportionately young folk who hit the street. Does that make sense, my brother?
No, no, it makes total sense because again, but that's a part of these forces and how they're moving and how they're converging.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that, and Reverend Barber and I were talking about this here, and this probably was around the third week after the death of Floyd, and people kept talking about riots, they kept talking about looting, they kept talking about rebellion. Many of us were using the phrases reckoning. Then I went to my library,
Mm-hmm.
and then I grabbed a series of books. And I see your books behind you. And one of the first one, I was trying to really think about this thing in a much broader and bigger way.
Yes, yes.
And the first thing I thought about was Du Bois' Black Reconstruction. Then I pulled out Eric Foner's book, Reconstruction: America's Unfinished Revolution.
Oh, yes. And,
Then
and
I,
those two go together, hand in
yeah,
hand.
then I pulled
1935, 1987.
Then I pulled out Manning Marable's The Second Reconstruction and Beyond in Black America.
Oh,
And
yes.
and then Dr. Barber's book, The Third Reconstruction,
There.
Moral Mondays. I have been saying that this is the third reconstruction, that we should not look at this as sort of this short-term thing. We should look at this thing as the first reconstruction was 12 years. The second reconstruction, Marable has it 45 to 2006. I really have it from 54 to 68. I
Mm-hmm.
said, which lasted 14 years. We have to be thinking in terms of the third reconstruction because reconstruction means literally reconstruct the nation, reconstruct the system, reconstruct the paradigm, not make small fixes. Your thoughts?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I would turn to Du Bois's great text of 1921 called The Gifts of Black Folk. A lot of folk know the 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folk, but the gifts of Black folk. He says, what are the gifts? Well, two of the major gifts is the reconstruction of freedom, the reconstruction of democracy. But the big difference here, though, brother, is that this third Reconstruction that you talked about, that Brother Barber talks about, and Brother Eddie Glaude talks about in the Third American Founding in his recent book on James Baldwin, Begin Anew, is that we're this moment of the decay and decline of the American empire, so that the impact of America around the world is lessening, not just its reputation, but its inability to present itself as something that it is not, which is this beacon of liberty. I mean, here's, July 4th, right?
Right, right.
Frederick Douglass, celebrations of shame, national greatness, swelling vanity, boast of liberty, unholy license. America reigns without rival when it comes to revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy. That's Brother Frederick Douglass, July 5th, 1852. Well, now the chickens have come home to roost, though, brother. America has been revealed to be a place that cannot deliver basic goods and services to its own people. 40% of Americans living near or in poverty. It cannot protect rights and liberties when it comes to those dissenting voices that are being pushed to the side too often. And it cannot deliver purpose and meaning, because its commodified culture is so spiritually empty and vacuous, and it's all about getting over and manipulation and domination rather than learning how to care and nurture for others and cultivate intimacy and love, which is what makes life worth living. That's why you got the drug overdoses taking place. That's what you got, the unbelievable sense of meaninglessness, what I call nihilism, taking place, so that the culture of an empire, as well as its nation state, with all of its militarism around the world, AFRICOM in Africa expanding and so forth, dropping drones on innocent people. And then the greed, my brother, the greed beginning on Wall Street and spilling over, which is out of control. That's the difference between the second Reconstruction and the third one, because the second Reconstruction, America was just beginning to expand itself beyond the continental bounds, given its internal imperial expansion, looking for Guam, Puerto Rico, Philippines, and so forth. Now America is on the decline and decay. And you begin to see what Malcolm was talking about. You're going to reap what you sow. Sooner or later, those chickens going to come home to roost. And then the question becomes, how do we, in the belly of the beast, still love truth, beauty, goodness, love black people enough to recognize that the Reconstruction and the reawakening is the only option, or America goes under?
I was on this call last night, and this guy kept saying, well, just can we put a number on it? And he said, is it reparations? I said, no. I said, no, it's not. He says, well, can we put a number on it? I said, no. I said, it's an unknown number. And he was like, well, I don't understand. I said, see, here's the problem with this conversation. I said, how America always works is it's so like you take your car in and you don't really want to hear what the mechanic, just tell me how much it's going to cost.
Just money.
So they give you the number and you're like, okay, fine, fix it. I don't want to hear nothing else. What I explained to them is, I said, you can't put a number on this. And I know Bob Johnson came out, said 14 trillion, and I've seen other reports. I said, the reason I said I'm not going to put a number on it, the reason I'm not going to call it reparations, is because I said, this thing is so deep, it is so pervasive, it is so systemic, that if I put 14 trillion on it, once I get in, I may realize it's 40 trillion.
Yeah, 20. I was thinking 28, 45. Yeah.
I say, so what you want me to do, you want me to limit. So when we hit that limit, well, you said it was 14. Hey, here's 14. I said, no. I said, because you got to deal with education, you got to deal with housing, you got to deal with health. I started going through all these different categories, and I said, it's not that simple. And I think that's the problem with America. The impatience of America is like, look, just how much is it going to cost for y'all to go away? And I'm saying it ain't that simple to simply say how much is it going to cost. Because again, I'm sitting here with where do we go from here? Chaos or community.
Ooh, yeah.
King said,
Yeah.
America, you ain't ready to write that big check. And he didn't put a number. He just called it that big check.
No, that's real though, brother. I mean, part of it is people always want to reduce these kinds of issues of such crimes against humanity to just monetary matters, because America is a business culture, it's a market driven culture, it's a money obsessed culture. But you are absolutely right to resist it. But I think what you and I would agree is that there's got to be some kind of repair. So some form of reparations is required. And so we're going to have a dialogue. And the dialogue's got to be a robust dialogue. We got to bring in William Gardy. You know what I mean? You got to bring in all
Mm-hmm.
the different voices. You got to bring in Sister Yvette and Tone and all the other voices that's been talking about reparations. But at the same time, you see, I want to talk about redistribution of wealth in
Right,
addition to reparations. You
right,
see what
right.
I mean?
And that's what I'm
That's a
saying.
matter of being a citizen. That's not just
I'm
a matter
not
of being a descendant of slavery, Jim Crow, Jane Crow. That's just as an American citizen, they have a right to Medicare. That's what Brother Bernie's absolutely right.
right.
They got a right to a job with a living wage. They got a right to decent housing, and they got a right to quality education so they can get their minds and souls together to be fortitude, to love and respect ourselves enough to be willing to fight.
And that piece right there again, because what it does is, and this is how I've laid it out. I said we black folks, we've never had full citizenship.
That's true.
I said we've had it technically. The fact that yesterday I did a whole hour special today on the Crown Act. Today is the first
Mm,
anniversary of the Crown Act. I said if you want to understand why we're not at full citizenship, the fact that a law had to be passed that says you cannot discriminate on somebody's hair tells me there's no full citizenship.
that's
I said,
true.
if we had full citizenship, there would be no need for the Crown Act.
That's right.
I said there would be no need for us trying to get McConnell to vote on the bill the House passed that restores what the Supreme Court took out of the Voting Rights Act, declared
That's right.
unconstitutional. I said,
That's right.
I said to this group, it was largely white folks. I said, that's
Mm,
what y'all don't understand. I said, we have always had to go back and legislate our rights when you got it just because it's you.
that's exactly right. And that's what Malcolm was trying to tell us in the 60s, that you cannot be a full-fledged citizen if you have to undergo constitutional revision with an amendment to make you citizen, and then it's on paper but never enforced, is never executed on the ground. And when you try to execute it on the ground, you get white backlash so that it can never be true in practice, even when it's on paper. We break our necks to get it on paper. And
Right.
even when you get it on paper, it's not enforced, you see. So that, it raises deep issues in terms of whether the country has the capacity to treat the masses of black people with respect and dignity. That's Garvey's question. Garvey used to say what? As long as black people in the United States, the masses of black people will live lives of ruin and destruction. Now, I have great love for Marcus Garvey. I have great love for the black nationalist tradition. I'm not a Garveyite. I'm not a black nationalist. He's my brother. They are my brothers and sisters and so forth. But that question, the Garveyite question, remains unanswered because the masses of black men, I'm not talking about the exceptional Negroes. I'm not
Right.
talking about the black middle class. I'm not talking about those who have been incorporated and in some sense integrated. And I love them too, but I'm going to bring critique to bear on them if they don't put black poor and working people at the center of their view. And of course, for me, the Christian, focusing on the least of these, always the most weak, the most vulnerable. And I know you heard the same thing from Brother Barber.
The thing that, um, as I look at right now, and first of all, these brothers and sisters with Until Freedom and other organizations, New York Justice League, they are strategizing, they're planning, and they're operating. But
Mm,
one of the things and there are numerous groups out there. There are groups that are national. There are groups that are regional, that are local. Of course, you have your traditional groups, the NAACP and the Urban League, but then you have a number of other different groups. what has been, it's not necessarily troubling me, but as I've been sort of trying to, again, think about this in terms of Reconstruction terms.
Right.
Um,
Right.
the thing that what I keep saying is, I think, Doc,
Uh-huh.
that the ask is too small. And I
Mm.
and as I was sitting here, so this was one of the things that so MLK wrote in Where Do We Go From Here? He says, one of the main questions that the Negro must confront in his pursuit of freedom is that of effectiveness. What is the most effective way to achieve the desired goal? If a method is not effective, no matter how much steam it releases, it is an expression of weakness, not of strength. And so I think right now the
Mm.
ask is too small. I have been on calls with, I'm vice president digital for National Association of Black Journalists. And folks, we were on a call and someone was talking and they were talking about, well, this corporation, they were asking for 100,000. I said, I'm sorry. I said, that's too small. They said, Roland, what are you talking about? I said, 100 million each. That equals a billion. Folks, they were like, what? I said, yes, a billion. I said, y'all, this ain't a small ask. I think what we're seeing, I think we're seeing, people are excited. Well, Adidas is giving 100 million, and Michael Jordan and Comcast is giving 100 million, and Apple 100 million, and I'm sitting there going, 100 million a year. I think we got to be challenging our folks to say that the
That's
ask
true.
is too small.
That's true, though, brother. That's true. Because, see, what has happened now is, when you have brothers and sisters of all colors in the streets and the status quo is running scared, that they throw money at the problem. But see, philanthropy is not justice. Charity, not justice.
And it's
But
not investment.
and it's not investment, and it's not consistent and recurrent. I like your notion of annual, yearly, a pattern of support, you see. But we got to make sure that vast, vast amount of that money though just doesn't end up in black professional pockets.
Right, right,
Somehow
right.
it's got to get to our precious brothers and sisters in the hood, dealing with poverty, dealing with inadequate housing, dealing with massive unemployment and underemployment, because it's so easy that the money remains circulated within
Right.
the professional class, be it black, white, or whatever. And so you end up with a class hierarchy that's just more colorful at the top, but the class hierarchy still got too many folks suffering, disproportionately black, disproportionately brown, disproportionately indigenous peoples.
Which still requires organization, which still
That's
requires
right. And
structure.
courageous leadership. And
Right,
courageous leadership.
right, and that's the piece where what I keep saying to folk is
Yeah.
is real easy to say. It's real easy. I go back to the May Day marches we had. You had Latinos / Hispanics marching all over the country. A million in LA, a million in New York, in Chicago, in Houston, all over the place. But people say, well, why wasn't it effective? It wasn't effective because you had boots on the ground, but you did not have organized infrastructure who could then take those demands, place it within a public policy narrative, and then drive it through. See, we keep talking about King and Fannie Lou Hamer and
Right.
all those folk, but you can't ignore Clarence Mitchell. If
That's
there's no Clarence Mitchell walking the halls of the Senate and the House pushing folk on the bills, so he was doing that work, and so that's the other
that's
piece
right.
that And again, I look at these groups, and what I keep asking the groups is, okay, this is what you're doing, but what's your plan? I see but what's the plan? And you're doing, how's it reaching people? Where is it going? Where are resources going? And I think we've got to keep doing is challenging black folks, black organizations right now saying, oh, okay, so the corporations are giving you NAACP this money and the Urban League this money. Okay, but we want to see the plan,
Yes.
what you're going to do with the
That's
resources that they are given.
There you go. We want accountability of you when the money comes in terms of your plan and how it will be executed. Now, I do want to say this about that Mayday because I was there marching with the my Latino brothers and sisters. You remember at that particular moment, DACA was off the chart, and
Yeah.
we put pressure on Brother Barack Obama. Tremendous pressure for him to push through on an executive order. We had almost a million folk in Washington, D.C., and I give Mark Mario credit because he was there. It was
Right.
only wasn't that many black folk there. You know,
Very true.
Brother Tavis was there, but I mean, you were covering it, but I mean, you
Right.
everywhere. You know what I mean? You everywhere. That's the kind of Houston, Texas brother you are. You
That's
everywhere.
right.
But
That's
the
right.
thing is that you have to be able to have an inside outside strategy. See, you got the sister Barbara Lee's on the inside. You got Bernie Sanders on the inside. I'm talking about the folk who really gonna fight. Now, I'm not talking about folk who just posing and posturing like peacocks. I'm talking about they're gonna really come through. But you have to have insiders who are heeding the call of folk on the street, so that that pressure is very, very real.
We one of the things that a few weeks ago, and we had a great conversation. You had some prison stuff that you were doing. You had a podcast, and we had this great conversation with Brothers of Alpha.
Oh yeah,
And
I wanted to
it,
be there, but my brothers
yes,
from
yes,
Broadway were
yes, sir. I
graduating.
got you.
Yeah,
It's all good. We had an unbelievable conversation. And the thing that and the reason I have been pushing them, and I've been talking about this here because what keeps getting stuck in my head is something that King said. Because again, I keep getting stuck on organization and infrastructure because you can't mobilize people unless you have something you're mobilizing them into.
that's right.
And I want to get your perspective on this because I have been preaching and yelling this for more than a decade now. When King said there are already structured forces in the Negro community that can serve as the basis for building a powerful united front: the Negro Church, the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional associations. Then, but I love this line. We must
Mm.
admit that these forces have never given their full resources to the cause of Negro liberation. He said too many Negro newspapers have veered away from their traditional role as protest organs agitating for social change and have turned to the sensational and the conservative in place of the substantive and the militant. Too many Negro social and professional groups have degenerated into snobbishness and a preoccupation with frivolities and trivial activity. The reason that's important because what I have
Very
argued
important.
and what I said to the Brothers of Alpha and all the Divine Nine, I said, we have this massive infrastructure. We're
Yeah.
international, national, regional, state, grad chapter, local chapter, and we have programs that go all the way down to pre-K. We're self-funded. Corporations don't fund us. I said, yet our focus for the most part is on internal. And I've argued that if there's a city council, a school board, a county commission, or a state legislature, if they see men in black and gold and don't automatically shudder, that means we have not been showing up flexing our muscle.
Ooh, that's a powerful, powerful way of putting it, my brother. That's very real, and we should be very candid about what Brother Martin was hitting here. He was talking about the worst of the black bourgeoisie, the worst of the black middle class, or what James Weldon Johnson and Rosamond in the Negro National Anthem said: "We falling in love with the felicities of the world, drunk with the wine of the world." See, which is the superficial stuff: status, position, rather than service and sacrifice. Now, the best of the black bourgeoisie, Martin himself, Duke Ellington himself. We can go on and on. Those middle class folk that said every black person, and I would say as a Christian, everybody, but every black person has exactly the same status.
Right.
So if your child is Jack and Jill, you ought to be as concerned about brothers and sisters in the hood as Jack and Jill brothers and sisters. See, that's what Martin was getting at. So when you look at the churches, the mosques, fraternities, sororities, they've got wonderful folk in them, but they also have tendencies, and you and I have seen it over the years, to deal with superficial things.
Right.
And in a moment of crisis, and we always live in every moment of crisis, be black in America, every moment of our lives in certain such moment of crisis, is how do we tease out our courage and our vision to make sure that we can create some kind of organization. Garvey used to say what? Disorganization is the major obstacle for black freedom. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Nkrumah would say it over and over again: organize, organize, organize.
Right.
and a variety of different kind of organizations. See, I don't think we'll ever have one overarching organization.
Nope.
Oh, I
Nope.
mean, people have come down on me recently. I was been defending my dear brother, Mr. Louis Farrakhan, in terms of his right to speak. They canceled him on Fox. I was on Fox News. I said, no, he got a right to speak. Well, you disagree with him. Well, he's my brother. We overlap on some things. We both hate white supremacy. We argue on other things, you see. But we have to be willing to take a risk. If somebody messing with you, you not perfect, I'm not perfect. But you are my brother. And if you know over the years, I've got to step forward. Why? Not because we're any of us exemplify purity, but
Mm-hmm.
because there's a slice in the black community of people who are willing to step out, be courageous, cut against the grain. And when they do that, even when you disagree with them, you have to defend their right to be, to speak, and so forth. And so that requires just a matter of consistency, though, brother. And
Mm-hmm.
consistency is a rare thing these days. Even given this historical moment that we're in, it's hard to find consistent folk. That's why I started off talking about your longevity, man. The ups,
Well,
the downs, Roland is still there. That's what I
that's
love.
right. You ain't
That's
gonna do
important, man.
it.
That's very
Right. And you're absolutely right. On that one is very. So I want you to explain for our folks. We discussed this the other day that I don't think white America has really any understanding that with the relationship between Nation of Islam and African Americans. And some people got mad at Ice. Some people got mad at Ice Cube when CNN's Jake Tapper was criticizing Farrakhan, and Ice Cube tweeted, "Watch your mouth."
right,
Um,
right.
what do you say to the white folks and some black folks who say, "Wait a minute, how can you be black and criticize a Richard Spencer, criticize some they would throw in a David Duke and other. How can you criticize them, but then you'll say that Farrakhan should speak? How do you respond to that?"
Well, one is I say first you got to quit lying about my brother, Minister Louis Farrakhan. When he said Hitler was wickedly great, he was the greatest among the wicked ones. And it was an indictment of a Holocaust. It was a critique of Hitler's treatment of Jews. So what has happened is you get this shoddy journalism where they say, Ms. Louis Farrakhan said Hitler's a great man. That's a lie. He said he's wickedly great. Well, he said something about Judaism. He said Judaism can be used as a gutter religion. Well, I'm a Christian. You know that. Can Christianity be used as a gutter religion? Hell yes. Ku Klux Klan. Constantine using Christianity to defend the empire. Christianity used against women, against gay brothers and lesbian sisters. So first you got to tell the truth about Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, does Minister Louis Farrakhan speak only the truth? No. He got to be accountable like everybody else. He
And
got
in
to be
fact,
courageous.
you challenge him aggressively on his attacks on people of the Jewish faith
Absolutely. And when
and
we met
LGBT.
for 9 hours, when we first met, and all I told him was, I said, there's no such thing as the Jews. You got reactionary Jews, you got right-wing Jews, you got centrist Jews, you got progressive Jews, you got revolutionary Jews, just like there's no such thing as the blacks. Nobody speaks for me or speaks for you. We got Clarence Thomas on the one hand, we got William Barber, we got Michelle Alexander and Angela Davis on the other. And he received that. He said, Brother West, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So part of the problem is that when you have a corporate media that is so intent on lying on a brother, first you got to make sure you get the truth. Then when you get the truth and you still have disagreements, then you have a serious conversation and dialogue. But I think one can never deny the level and the breadth of the longevity of Minister Louis Farrakhan's hatred of white supremacy. That's just a fact. His impact on everyday black people. That is just a fact. That does not mean in any way that we agree with everything. I mean, of course, as he's a Muslim and I'm a Christian, we got theological disagreements, just like Malcolm and myself. But at the same time, I'm going to be very honest and always try to be candid and speak whatever truths that flow out of my soul and deal with consequences. And what has happened is it's been almost taboo to have anything to do with Mr. Louis Farrakhan because of the corporate media. You see, I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong.
Speaking of that, I'm looking at various comments here on our YouTube channel, on other channels, and there've been a number of people who said, "I hear you, Dr. West, but I can't get over what you did to Obama."
Mm.
And when you and he's been gone now for 3 years out of the presidency. And you and I had a previous conversation about that,
Oh,
where we had
had been.
a very honest dialogue, where I stated where I thought you made missteps.
Absolutely.
As you reflect on that, as you reflect on how a lot of black folks who really loved you and respected you, they turned away. Um, how have you thought about that and played that through your mind in the last 3 years since he left the White House?
Well, I mean, one, as you know, for me to do over 65 events for Brother Barack Obama for free from
Mm-hmm.
Iowa to Ohio in 2008 and then support him again in 2012, I would say, well, I am going to speak the truths inside of my soul in regard to any head of the American empire. That my critique of the system is different than a critique of just the person. I've never been obsessed with just the individuals. I've always been obsessed with the injustice in the system as a whole. So when they say to me, "Oh, Brother West, you were hating on Obama," no, I hated his relation to Wall Street when he bailed out Wall Street and didn't bail out the homeowners, and 58% of the black middle class lost their homes. Oh, you hate Obama. No, I hated him dropping drones in Libya, in Yemen, in Somalia, in Afghanistan. 563 of them, over 4,000 people killed, many innocent ones. I'm a Christian. Every baby got the same value. I don't care what color they are. So I got to bear witness to that truth. Now, the symbolic significance of Obama, I never denied. He is historically unprecedented. He's brilliant. He's poised. He's subtle. He got a magnificent family. He and Sister Michelle have done a wonderful, wonderful job with their two blessed daughters. But that doesn't mean I don't critique the system. He was head of the U.S. empire, tied to Wall Street, tied to drones. So just like Martin had to come out with a critique of Vietnam, just like Martin had to come out with a critique of wealth inequality and Wall Street greed, why is it that the Wall Street criminals get away, but those who commit crimes in the hood go straight to jail? I had to raise my voice. And I went at Obama tough because my expectations were high. Therefore, my disappointment was deep. And so, in that sense, I would say to many of the young brothers and sisters, whoever they are, and they don't have to still agree with me or whatever, but as they look back, do they not admit that when it came to Obama speaking to issues, even of white supremacy? You remember when the black leaders came out of the White House in March of 2009 talking about, well, there's no such thing as the black agenda anymore because Obama said he's not president of black people. He's only president of America. And
No,
therefore, he
I
has
remember,
nothing
and
special. You
I
remember that?
disagree vehemently. I disagree vehemently.
And I said explicitly right there in Ebony magazine, that makes me want to vomit. We ain't been a black people for all these years and get a black president, and all of a sudden we don't have a black agenda anymore. No, something is wrong. That's a Chief Sweat moment. Something just ain't right, brother. Something just ain't right. Now, I had to raise my voice and say that, but it's true that it was the some of the language that I use upset some folk. But when it comes to me speaking what's inside of my soul, brother, I'm gonna be like Al Green. I just got to get it out, no matter what it sounds like. And I'm sorry sometimes I want to be accountable, but in the end, it ain't about hating Obama. It's about hating deeds. See, I believe in hating the sin and trying to always love the sinner. And I've never talked about him personally in terms of his character. I've talked about his conformity, his complacency, and sometimes his cowardliness. And people don't want to hear that, but everybody got cowardliness. I got it. I know you probably got a little bit. He got it too. We need to call it out.
What is your present day relationship with Tavis Smiley? I don't have one. I've never had a relationship with Tavis. We would speak, I would see him, but we never had a relationship. He lost his show. He lost the lawsuit. He no longer does his State of Black America events. There are a lot, basically, before this whole phrase cancel culture came out, there were a lot of folks who said they canceled Tavish, and they were linking the two of you because, frankly, because of your criticism of Obama. Is there a place for Tavis Smiley in Black America, and should there be some type of reconciliation? Because when you bring up his name to a lot of Black folks, they are still very angry again with you and him,
You
but especially him.
Well, I mean, when you turn back to Brother Tavis's powerful text, accountability, if they actually read that text, they'll see that he turned out to be more right. Because all he was calling for, and I was calling for, was accountability. When he and I went on the poverty tour, because Brother Barack Obama would not mention the word poverty, he only talked about the middle class. Who's talking about poverty now? Almost everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that people have to give Brother Tavis credit in that regard. And one, Tavis will always be my brother. I always have a deep love for Brother Tavis. We certainly are not as close as we were before for a variety of different reasons. But that doesn't mean I don't love my brother. And his contribution from Black Covenant and a host of other things are undeniable. His impact, undeniable. Tom Jones Show, undeniable. So the idea of just pushing people away so quickly, I think it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And all of us in life go up, and all of us in life go down, and it's the bounce back. And he's bouncing back, and it's a beautiful thing.
We are seeing. I also think with George Floyd, I hope to see a massive resurgence, as Dr. King said in Where Do We Go From Here, the militancy of Black media. The reason I created my own platform was because I said, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't interested in asking a white producer, can I go cover Black people, and them saying no.
Right.
I said we could not have gotten to where we are now unless we had a Black-owned media that speaks to us. I was very critical of the fact that the first funeral service for George Floyd, all of the networks were carrying it. TV One, no. Their sister network, Clio TV, no. BET, no. BET Her, no. Revolt, no. OWN, no. Bounce, no. Aspire, no. Afro, no. And I said, what the hell? How can you have this moment where the nation is transfixed and you turn to these other networks and they were showing the funeral of George Floyd, and the Black networks were showing damn sitcoms?
Wow. It's a sad thing, brother.
Now the second funeral, BET and Revolt carried it, but I believe that part of the problem that we have is that we have too many folk in Black media who are doing exactly what King said when he said they have turned to the sensational and the conservative in place of the substantive and the militant. And we are seeing entertainment, we are seeing gossip, we're seeing reality shows, and we are not seeing people who are modern day Robert Abbotts, modern day AI Scotts, modern day Claude Barnett, or Ida B. Wells Barnett. And I'm sorry, in this moment, Black networks and Black media cannot be filled with a bunch of damn gossip and entertainment.
You are absolutely right, brother. And that's why we got to go back to the best of our history. You see, because to be a Black journalist is to be part of a Black middle class that oftentimes could be so obsessed with the white normative gaze or white persons and powers being the point of reference for you. You have to define yourself in relation to the greatness within inside of your own tradition or any forms of greatness in other traditions. So that what is the standard that William Monroe Trotter set? You read Terry Greenidge's powerful text. What's the standard Ida B. Wells set? What's the standard T. Thomas Fortune set? Or the names that you talk about? And the ways in which you are Martin Delaney or Frederick Douglass are part of that same tradition. And what did they do? They pierced through the superficiality. And see, sometimes that means, oh, Brother Roland, you got to be willing to give up popularity for integrity. Yeah. You ain't loving Black people for them to love you back. You loving Black people because they're worthy of being loved, and you trying to bear witness to get them to see things they not seeing and do things they not doing. Vision and courage. That's precisely the history of the best of black journalism. And Malcolm himself, founding Muhammad Speaks, right? He's a journalist too in that regard. And he continued to grow, as we know. What did he say? Whoever's for truth, I'm for it. Who's ever
But it
fighting
all
for justice,
right.
I'm with you. But I'm beginning on the chocolate side of town. He didn't add the Parliament Funkadelic language like that. But he said, I'm starting on the chocolate side of town. That's me and that's you. We
But it
love black
also
people.
yes.
Love of
And,
black
yeah,
people comes in a lot of different forms, but it doesn't stay there. We love folk as a whole, but we start there with our mamas. And today, my mama's birthday, brother, 88 years young.
all right. Happy birthday, Mama
Oh,
West.
I'm telling you, but see, she set a standard. You see what I mean?
There you
And
go.
I'll
There you
never
go.
be the person she is. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm never gonna give up trying to be and aspiring
Right.
to be her level of spiritual excellence and the level of moral excellence in that regard.
It also requires for black people to have to be willing to fund our own stuff.
So that's
And
true.
the
That's
reason that's
true.
vital is because I sort of lay out, you can't keep saying, man, we want y'all to fight, but then you expect us to have somebody else pay for it. I've said it, and
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is not denigrating the NAACP, but the reality is this here: if the NAACP's budget is based upon corporate giving, then the NAACP cannot truly be hardcore on fighting for black folks against the very interest. The Color of Change doesn't accept any corporate gifts. And what I tell folk all the time, the reason the Chicago Defender was as powerful as it was because black folks had subscriptions. They
That's
paid for
true.
it. And so it's getting our people to understand, like this here, I do it all the time. I
That's
tell people,
true.
I say, yo, if 20,000, I got 2.7 million social media followers. If 20,000 of our people gave $50 each, and that's
Mm,
the Wall Street Journal costs $350 a year. I say if 20,000 gave $50 each, that's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That completely funds the show. We can travel, we can cover stuff. We will do 700 hours of content this year. I said, but we've got to be willing to fund it. Now we've got about 8,800, 9,000 folks. We got 11,000 to go. But the point I'm trying to make is you can't keep expecting somebody else to fund your freedom fighters to fight for your freedom, because whoever's funding your freedom fighters is really who they responsive to.
no, I tell you, those strings are real. Those strings are very, very real. You are absolutely right, my brother. Absolutely right. Uh, uh, and that means that we have to have a black business class
Mm-hmm.
that puts struggle for justice more at the center than just a matter of making money and living large. Now, we're not denying, they can live well,
Right.
but when you're in struggle, you got to be able to make some sacrifices here, and you got to be able to provide support for folk who are fighting for your cousins, because all your cousins not doing as well as you are, and they are just as precious as you are. And many of your cousins catching hell and getting tired. And all of us got, loved ones dealing with mass incarceration and all of this mass unemployment and the inadequate education and housing. And they are just as priceless as anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's why I don't have it, but it actually is upstairs. Martin Depp's book on Operation Breadbasket. One of the
Mm,
most underappreciated things that MLK left us, that Reverend Jackson picked up, and they used the power of boycotts and the power of the church to increase the wealth of black folks when it came to jobs, putting money in black banks, when it came to black businesses, also supporting them. John Rogers lives in that tradition where I lived in
yes.
Chicago 6 years, where I saw John Rogers at Rainbow Push every Saturday with his check, because he
Oh,
said,
yeah.
we can't ask our civil rights leaders to fight for us and then expect them to starve, because ain't no 401k plan in the civil rights movement. And I think just for too many of us, is I think that a lot of black folks, I just keep saying, you can't sit back and say, man, what y'all gonna do if you're unwilling to also make sure the black church, the reason it was so powerful, because the black folk funded the pastor.
They had independence and autonomy when the pastor was courageous enough.
Right.
Because pastors can sell out too. Like in Detroit, they sell out to Henry Ford. The Reverend C.O. Franklin refused to. Charles Leander Hill of Hartman Memorial refused to. Charles Adams refused to. But you are absolutely right. And John Rogers is a good example. I break bread with him every year. He's tied to Brother Father Flager. Right there, to Saint Sabina. He gives to Saint Sabina.
Yep.
Like he gives to Brother Jesse, you see. But he's very much part of the black upper class, really. He got some serious cash at Ariel, but he's never forgotten from whence he comes, and he provides certain kinds of financial support to forces for good, like Brother Flager and like Rainbow Coalition, a host of other organizations that he and
last question for you. Last question for you. 50 years from now, a kid is stumbling through books and they come across a Cornel West book. They're perusing YouTube and they come across a video, an interview, this interview, a speech, a lecture. And they're like, who is this? What do you want that kid to know who Cornel West was?
Wow, that's a powerful question, though, brother. I would say this, that if they had any sense of what I tried to do in my own fallible and feeble way, that I would provide them as a vehicle to what it is to be part of a great people, of a great tradition, who've been hated chronically for 400 years and kept dishing out love warriors, who were terrorized for 400 years but still was free, who was traumatized for 400 years but still had a style and a smile. And so they would then connect me to Ma Rainey's, the Bessie Smiths, the John Coltrane's, Curtis Mayfield, the Dramatics and the Delphonics and the Emotions, and all of those of that tradition in the face of overwhelming catastrophe that said, here comes some more compassion, here comes some more courage, here comes some more creativity. Listen to Mary Lou Williams on the piano and you understand what West was trying to do. Be a part of that tradition, not looking for popularity now. No, not at all. Looking for integrity, putting a smile on his mama's face and his daddy's and grandma and granddad, because that's where I come from. That's who I am. So I would hope they wouldn't focus on me. They would see through me this great tradition. And I do believe, though, brother, it is the greatest tradition in the modern world. There's been no other people who have been both hated and terrorized and traumatized the way black people have, and yet keep dishing out love warriors. Now, how long that tradition gonna last? We don't know. We don't know. We may reach a point where the black community say, you know what? We just need to create a black version of the Ku Klux Klan. They terrorized us, we terrorized them. Our tradition says we were looking for something deeper. But we might run out of gas. And they'll say, well, Brother West was one of those old Neanderthals. He was part of those old love warriors. Hey, that's true. That's true. We don't know what the future will bring, you see. But a little small slice in my shipwreckage life make access to that great tradition. So if they end up listening to John Coltrane, Love Supreme, they understand what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. They listen to a little Aretha. They understand what West was talking about in his text, in his interactions, in his movements, in his style, in his smile. That's where I come from.
My booking producer, Jackie Clark, hit me. She said, Dr. West called me twice already, wanted to make sure we doing this interview tonight. I said, let him know we good. We gonna do it a whole hour. She said he's excited. He wanted to make sure I said, we on.
No, see, when you called through her, I said, Brother Roland, I'm stopping everything. People don't understand what we got together. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
We don't have to agree on everything, but we brothers. So I'll stop everything. But then I called in. She's been magnificent. And I called and I said, I just want to make sure I just want to make sure I ain't missing this on Mama's birthday. I ain't missing this. This brother Roland right here.
Well, they also don't know that you and I have closed many parties together. The last one on the dance floor. So just
That's
so
the
folks
truth, though,
don't
brother.
get confused with it.
Ooh, you ain't like a little midnight star. What you talking about? But I love you, brother, and I respect you,
Love you
man.
as
You know
well,
that.
my brother. Dr. Cornel West, it's always a pleasure. Our folks, they have absolutely enjoyed this. They're going to enjoy the restream as well. We appreciate it. Keep swinging. And in the words of our frat brother, Vertner Woodson Tandy, and I end many of my speeches this way, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I never heard that formulation.
Yes,
I
Vertner
know being
Woodson Tandy.
faithful unto death of Gardner Taylor, Emmanuel Scott, and Carolyn Knight, but on the ice, brother.
Vertner Woodson Tandy said we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will
Ooh-wee.
fight on the ice.
On the ice, that's the tradition we come from, brother. Go down swinging like Muhammad Ali and Ella Fitzgerald. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing and the stang in the swing. Keep
Yes,
that
sir.
stang in the swing.
Yes,
You
sir.
gotta have a smile on your face, though. You know what I mean? You gotta
Indeed.
find joy. You gotta find the joy. See, black folk, we've been a people of joy. We're soulful people, and that's what soul is. That sharing of the soothing sweetness and joy in the face of all the ugliness. That's what's kept us going. That's part
Yes,
of what
sir.
that 858 stands for, brother. That
Yes,
joy,
sir.
that service, that willingness to go down swinging, though, man. But I salute you, man. I really do.
Likewise. We salute you as well. Dr. West, thanks a bunch. You take care.
Take good care. God bless you now. Stay strong.
All right, thank you,
God bless
sir.
your loved ones.
Yes, sir. Love you as well. Back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, the folks at Ceek.com have an incredible offer for you folks. And these are these 360-degree 4D headphones that you can use for music, you can Bluetooth, you can for gamers, all that sort of stuff. Mary Spiels, a sister, she's actually the inventor of these headphones. Phenomenal. I love the sound of these. They also have the virtual reality headsets, which allow for you to actually watch VR virtual reality videos, 360-degree videos. You just simply pop your phone right into here. And then, of course, if you you can also go like YouTube has an app as well that has a channel that deals with a lot of those VR ads, and so you can actually do all of that, folks. Check this out and pop it on, and guess what? Check out your virtual reality videos. Go to Ceek.com, 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 Ceek.com. Use this promo code right here, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020 for a discount on these headphones. And then, of course, when you support them, you support this show, Roland Martin Unfiltered.